Welcome to New Hampshire Politics with John Burt. I'm John Burt. Thank you for joining me. And again, we have former Representative Max Aberson, and you're from Seabrook.
That's right.
Yeah, thank you for
Formerly
coming on again.
representing Hampton Falls and Seabrook, two almost diametrically opposed towns, but they're both Republican-leaning towns.
Yeah.
But they're completely different, complete polar opposites. One is very blue-collar, Seabrook, and the other is Hampton Falls, which I guess has one of the highest income levels in the state.
Wow.
So,
well, I was wondering because you are a good vote up there. You know, I voted with you many times, and I think you voted with me many times when you were in the House. How did you get elected out of it? Because isn't it more liberal on the seacoast?
no.
Or is it just Seabrook's not?
No.
That area?
There's a slice of Portsmouth, even though Portsmouth goes very Democrat. A little bit of backstory there. That southern part of Portsmouth is about split 50-50. Nancy Stiles wins it every time. And then everything down the seacoast is Republican. Northampton, Hampton, Hampton Falls, Seabrook, Southampton. But it just leans very slightly Republican. Now, the reason is a little bit odd. Most of the folks there know somebody who's a former state rep, so they know. I sat 5 rows behind Steve Shurtleff, who I bumped into at the State House today. Yeah. And Steve Shurtleff's a really nice guy. But every time he stands up and puts his thumb up like that, everyone who ran as a Democrat has to switch their vote to yes. And every time he stands up and puts his thumb down like that, everyone who ran as a Democrat has to switch their vote to no. So, and if you don't vote the way you're told, all the union officials and lawyers and big city party bosses and everyone else, they'll show up in the primary to vote against you. And if you survive your primary, they'll get all their community organizers and all their union votes and everything, and they'll tell everybody to vote against you. And they don't care if they lose the election. They don't want any maverick Democrats. So I sat down with Chris Roberts, who was one of the 12 or 15 maverick Democrats? He's a Democrat.
Oh, over in Keene.
Yeah, but he doesn't vote the way he's told.
That's right.
He said they spent, the New Hampshire Democrat Party spent like $52,000 against him because he voted with us to properly fund charter schools and keep the charter schools open.
Yeah.
And he wasn't going along with the party line. So now you have all these Democrats and independents who have no party. So the seacoast, the southern seacoast, people know about this because I make sure that everyone knows. Yeah. And all the other reps make sure that everyone knows. So if you want to serve as a representative, you pretty much have to run as a Republican right now until...
Yeah, no, I've always been a huge supporter of Seabrook. You know, I always tell everybody we should build the number 2.
Yeah, we should, and it would save everyone, it would not just reduce your electricity rates, it would lower everyone's property taxes. It would bring in millions of dollars in business profits tax revenue and help buy down the overall, business tax rate. It would bring in hundreds and hundreds of jobs to the area.
And I understand
about 1,000 jobs already.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Good paying jobs.
Yeah.
And I also understand that the new nuclear plants that they are building, a ton of them throughout the world, are just incredibly safe.
And they can recycle spent nuclear fuel. I think only the U.S. and Russia don't recycle spent nuclear fuel. Everywhere else recycles spent nuclear fuel. So they can power up a reactor using the latest technology and just let it go for 30 or 40 years. And they have systems where instead of using up only 3 or 4% of the nuclear fuel, they'll use 96%.
Wow.
So there's almost no radioactivity left. So when you bury it, it's not even a hazard anymore because all the radiation has been turned into electricity.
Wow. Yeah, we need to start looking more into that. But what I had you on for is I got a few topics that I want to bring up, and one is Chucky's fight. I remember you talking about it, and I'm very interested in it.
Almost everyone in the Seacoast knows Chucky. Chucky Rose is a good friend of mine. He makes the best chili, but he's better known, even than his chili. He's known for going around to all the schools and talking to the kids about staying away from drugs and alcohol. He is the single best prevention program there. And he's gotten hundreds and hundreds of thank you letters from high school kids and junior high kids from all over the southern seacoast. Because he doesn't just do the seacoast, he goes all the way into Exeter. And all the kids are writing letters and they're talking to everyone. And he had to raise about $2,500. And I said, you save the town so much money just on 911 calls
Yeah.
that it's worth it. It's actually cheaper to keep Chucky's fight going. So I figured out a way to do a citizen's petition to get $2,500 for him, and I happened to be on the budget committee at the time. So not only did we get the $2,500 passed, I had to use that. I hate using that argument when it's life and death, but it cuts down on 911 calls and trips to the emergency room and treatment
Yeah.
and so forth. He actually ends up saving money. So it's a no-brainer, but he's saved so many lives. And I actually have my Chucky's Fight dog tag in the car. I should have brought it with me.
You should have. And how long has he been doing this?
I think maybe 10 or 12 years. He lost his eldest son to heroin addiction.
Yeah.
And then right afterwards, he lost his second oldest son. Just afterwards. So
Wow.
he goes into the water every day. He's well known for it, but he's also,
Yeah.
because he speaks from the heart, he has a lot more impact on the kids than a lot of the generic, I guess, DARE programs or anti-drug programs.
Well, he must break the kids right down. And I bet you some of them must be, in tears before
Absolutely.
he leaves. Yeah.
And when you read the letters from these kids, you can you see the emotion.
Wow. I wonder if Goffstown has ever had him over. We should look into that.
Maybe. We do need to get additional funding. He's only getting total about $7,500 a year. He doesn't just do prevention, he also does work with the courts and the kids who go through probation and parole, and they need to
Yeah.
rehabilitate. A lot of these kids are 17, 18 years old, they've already gotten into trouble, and he's trying to steer them to a better life. So he serves as a great example. For some of them, he serves as the only father figure they've got.
Wow.
But in order for Chucky Rosa and his family to keep on doing what they do, and for the hundreds and hundreds of volunteers and people who help out in some big ways and some small ways,
Yeah.
he needs the funding. So he's doing a lot of fundraisers and.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, very, very. Boy, to lose two kids, that's got to be hard. To do it every day.
I've lost 2 friends in the last 2 years just to drug addiction, and that was part of the reason why I did Jesse's Law.
Yeah.
They try to make best practices possible at the local level.
Yeah. Now, one thing that I believe is going to pass, and I wanted to talk to you about it, is the needle exchange program. I think it's House Bill 1681.
Last year it was 1681.
Last year, yeah, which sadly failed. It failed in my committee.
But it passed on the floor with bipartisan support.
Yes.
Then it went to the Senate side, and we wrote letters. I talked to Nancy Stiles. I talked to
you know
Russell
what?
Prescott.
It did
I talked
pass
to
out of my
Sam
committee.
Cataldo. And we talked to all these state senators, and guess what happens? They said, we'll do a study committee.
Yeah.
One of the problems
it was
is
in the
if
Senate.
something is controversial and it's hard, it can take 5 to 10 years to get it through the House. When you finally get it through the House, then it goes to the Senate. But this is the first time they've heard of it. Now it takes another 5 to 10 years to get it through the Senate.
Yeah.
And this is a life and death thing. Ronald Reagan was famous for just say no, but one of the other things that the Reagan administration did was called harm reduction. Just Say No, the prevention program, needle exchange programs, and they had studies even back then that found that in the cities, in urban areas where they had private voluntary needle exchange programs, that the number of new teenage users went way, way down. And it went down almost certainly because now these kids are seeing not Miami Vice, they're seeing heroin addicts come out of the back alleys to go trade in their needles. And these 17, 18-year-old kids are saying, hey, I don't want to end up like that. And so guess what? Heroin use went way down.
Really?
Then when they stopped needle exchange programs in 1989, guess what? Heroin use went way, way, way up, and we've lost a lot of people because of that. So it cuts down on a number of HIV cases. When people share needles, they contract HIV or hepatitis, and this has been one of the number one most common ways that HIV has gotten into the population. We've lost over 1 million Americans to AIDS, and the number one reason for that is people sharing needles. So needle exchange programs could have saved as many as 900,000 lives.
Wow.
Harm reduction countries, most Western countries now are harm reduction countries, and they've cut the number of new HIV cases by about 90%. And countries like Malaysia and Thailand that do nothing for harm reduction have, or South Africa, they have phenomenal death rates. They have out of control AIDS. You've got some parts of Thailand and parts of Africa that have 25% HIV positive rates in some of those cities and towns.
So why don't they try to, fix that?
All they'd have to do is repeal a few laws, like passing House Bill 1681. So why don't they do it?
Yeah. Well, it looks like this year we're going to get it.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't get vetoed.
Yeah, Representative, I don't think the governor will. No, I think he's on the same. Yes, I believe he is. Representative JohnAndMaxAbramsonDiscussDrugIssues is working on it.
Okay.
Former rep. But
He was one of the good ones, too.
he
He
was
a doctor.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was forced into retirement by Obamacare.
Yep.
If Obamacare doesn't get repealed, the estimate, so we've lost tens of thousands of doctors under Obamacare because they lose money if they stay in practice. They're expecting to lose another 90,000 doctors if Obamacare is not repealed. That's why everyone is looking at, what's his name, Rand Paul, Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky.
Yeah.
When Ryan Care failed by a few votes, now everyone is looking at going with the Rand Paul reform, which is repeal, not lose a whole bunch of people losing their coverage.
Yes.
But opening it up to free market competition to get the cost down. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping that Rand Care, he's actually a doctor, by the way.
Oh.
He's a doctor and a senator, so maybe
Yeah.
I think his plan might carry a little more weight.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully it'll help. Well, like Joe Hannon,
Mhm.
he really knows his stuff when he sits down.
Well, he's talking from firsthand experience, just like I'm talking from firsthand experience, and I'm talking about maritime.
Yeah.
I went to sea for about 12 years, and so I have a lot of firsthand experience with it.
Yeah. Well, and what I tell people when they say about Narcan, the needle exchange, the 911 immunity law that we passed allows a drug user to call 911 if his drug user friend, passes out and et cetera. Some of them say, well, just let him die, let him die. Well,
Yeah.
but that kid or adult sometimes, they have parents. So, what do we do with that? What do you tell people when reps and EMT people, they aren't doing it anymore because they're being caught on TV saying it.
Right.
Just let them die. But, what do we tell these people?
People get frustrated. They get angry.
Is that what it is,
The only
frustration?
solution they have
Yeah.
is the war on drugs doesn't work. When the only solution you have is a hammer, sickle and hammer and sickle. It's the Soviet Union's drug policy, and it didn't work in the Soviet Union. And that's why all these communist countries have given up on the war on drugs, trying to use prisons to solve the drug problem.
Yeah.
They're looking at everyone is looking at Western Europe and saying, look, they've dramatically reduced drug use, drug addiction, drug-related crime, number of HIV cases. They've dramatically reduced the problems by treating drug addicts the same way we treat alcoholics or gambling addicts. When you treat people like people, it works.
Yeah.
Sometimes they need tough love, but tough love works. Now we have something that costs less than prisons and works much, much better. Let's switch to harm reduction. It's effective.
Well, and like you say, once you're in prison, you're in the system. It costs, tremendous amount of money.
$35,513 per year per inmate.
Wow. But the biggest cost is when that inmate comes out and goes to an employer and says, can I get a job? Well, where have you been 3 years? Kind of hanging out at the state penitentiary. He's done. He isn't going to get a job.
So they're a convict, and they're tied in with prison gangs, and they have their prison tattoo, and they have, drug addiction, drug treatment. Who's going to want to take a risk with that? And that's exactly why Portugal puts resources into employment support to get people, instead of going through prison, they put them in treatment, recovery support, and they get them into a job. They pay businesses to take them.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to look at more of what they're doing and, see how we can, look at,
Well,
reducing
Jesse's
what we're
law
doing.
is going to need co-sponsors for next year. If we're trying to get it reintroduced next year.
Are you? Yeah.
We need Republicans and Democrats, and we've got one Libertarian in the House, so maybe we'll have tripartisan support.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about legalizing cannabis to fight the heroin addiction because I understand that is a possibility to, because some people say it's a gateway drug to heroin, which I disagree with.
Okay.
It's like drinking beer. I don't think drinking beer one week you're going to be at the liquor store the next week drinking the hard stuff. I think, it's your choice on where you want to be.
And actually, we're finding that states like Alaska, Washington, Oregon, Colorado, the voters voted to legalize, not decriminalize, but to legalize cannabis outright, partly to get the additional revenue.
Yeah.
What they found is heroin use has gone down, crime's gone down, property crime's gone down, and addiction rates have gone down. And that surprised me. I haven't really figured out why that is, but I've talked to a few former heroin addicts who found sometimes they need a substitute drug, better than a drug turns out is cannabis, which it actually turns out it isn't a drug. It doesn't fit in the drug category. But so people take medical marijuana for pain, and you have AIDS and cancer patients, and people, they need something to slow down the growth in brain cancer. And it turns out that the cannabinoids CBD oil and THC have the effect of destroying brain tumor cells and slow down the spread of cancer. And I knew about medical marijuana for a long time. I didn't realize it would work as a substitute. That was a surprise to me. But they found that a surprising number of heroin addicts, when nothing else works, and cocaine addicts, they can switch over to cannabis, and it's still kind of a mood-altering substance, but it's not going to kill you like cocaine or heroin do. And it gives your brain time to recover and restore its ability to. We found that long-term use of heroin, cocaine, and even synthetic drugs like OxyContin and Ritalin, some of the synthetic versions of cocaine, they physically damage the frontal lobes of the brain, the parts of the brain that deal with inhibition. So cocaine and heroin actually destroy your body's ability to fight addiction. For some reason, people smoke cannabis, and it calms their nerves. They're able to recover, and again, it can take 14, 18 months for the brain to recover enough to where you can get off of addictive behaviors, get off of addictive substances. So for some reason, cannabis seems to work. It doesn't just reduce crime, and it doesn't just deal with these other medical issues like epilepsy and skin conditions and whatnot, digestive problems, but it actually does seem to help with addiction.
So cannabis is probably even better than the the diamorphine.
The problem is,
what would the difference be there? I mean, where cannabis is really a natural plant.
It's just like quitting smoking. For some people, the nicotine patch works. For other people, they need a nicotine gum. For some people, they'll use cigars. Some people just need to cut back. Some people will smoke cigarettes, and they'll only smoke the first inch or two of the cigarette, and they'll throw the rest away, and it turns out that's enough for them. And some people are able to quit cold turkey. Some people have to cut to half a pack a day. So everyone is different, and it turns out the same thing is true with almost all addictive substances. Every brain is different. Every person is different. It's not just a question of willpower. It's people's minds function differently. Why they went down the slippery slope into addiction is different for each person. How they come out is going to be different for each person. That's why there's no holy grail. There's no one fix-it solution for everyone. You have to do lots of different things. That's why I put forward Jesse's Law. It allows counties 10 different solutions for 10 different counties. It allows each county to try lots of different things with different types of addicts to see what works to get people out of it.
Yeah.
For some people, it's just getting the job after they come out of treatment. For some people, they need peer support. Some people need different types of recovery support.
Yeah, I'm going to the Stratford County jail tomorrow. As we're taping this show, and we're going to be sitting down with some inmates, and they're going to talk to us about a program that they have that seems to be working. Don Gorman put it together, with him and the prisoners. They're using the ex-heroin addicts that are in prison to help the current heroin addicts get off. And he says why it's so successful is if a heroin addict told me, John, I'm never going to do it again, I'll probably believe the guy. The ex-heroin guy knows that he's lying. He knows everything about what he's going through, and he's going to help him get off, heroin.
Just like with Alcoholics Anonymous, when you pair the senior guy who's been through treatment with the new guy who's new to it,
exactly.
Both of them are more likely helping each other to get out of it. And that's why Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous work. You have people who are recovering, who know the process, know when they're being lied to. They've been through the whole trip. They can guide somebody else through it, and they're both more likely to stick to it.
Because I guess they're very, very persuasive, and I think that's where the families, and I almost call the families sometimes victims. The user, the drug abuser is, so good at saying, Mom, come on, I'm not doing it anymore. I need just $20 for this or whatever, and she gives it to him. Where I think with the with the drug user and a former drug user involved in his rehabilitation, I think I think it's going to work. So I can't wait to go over tomorrow. I think it's going to be pretty cool to sit in on this. But yeah, no. So I what I'm hoping for is that we can look at more legislation that is not the norm. Mm-hmm. I think that's extremely important. Like down in Massachusetts, the voters down there said, we're going to make it legalized, marijuana, and the legislators are having a hard time crafting it right now. So I don't know what they're going to do with that. And the police, they don't want that.
There was something in the Bible that says that mankind is not capable of making our own laws, so therefore God makes the laws. And you have all these Judeo-Christian societies that have worked for thousands and thousands of years, and then you have another set of societies, like I talk about the Soviet Union, where they rejected God and rejected faith and said, oh, no, we can do it ourselves. And it's just been one disaster after another. And actually, if you read the Bible, if you read biblical history, you find that the Bible's also mentioning societies just like that, where people rejected God and rejected the warnings, and they said, no, we can do it ourselves. We'll come up with our own commandments. We'll come up with our own laws. We'll do things our own way. Yeah. And they don't understand human beings as well as they think they do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, because like you say, how many prisoners did we have prior to 1980? It was hundreds, mm-hmm. and look at what we have today.
100 or 200, now it's almost 4,000.
And the system is, we still have the same amount of people on drugs. We still have the same amount of people breaking into homes.
We have 3 times as much drug use. We've gone from, in the 1950s and 60s, we never had even 20 million drug users. Now we have over 60 million drug users.
Wow.
I talked to my mother and grandmother, and they said they didn't know what drug-related crime was, because there was no drug-related crime. It was just the drug user hurting themselves. Now you've got out-of-control drug crime. Now you've got out-of-control drug deaths. You've got people being hauled into the emergency room one after another. Yeah. And I think a lot of it is due to the whole
at a huge
nanny
cost.
State strategy of having the federal government they said in the 1960s under Lyndon Johnson, they said, well, they have all these experts in government, and they had all these statistics, and they had rooms full of computers analyzing all kinds of statistics. Yeah. And they thought if they bureaucratized society, and they believed, they were the only people in the whole country who believed the Soviet Union's economic numbers. Everybody with an ounce of common sense understood that the Soviet Union was just, by this point, they were just making up completely phony GDP numbers and economic numbers. And the Soviet economy was a complete disaster, and American officials had gone over and they looked at the Soviet Union. They saw it was socialism not working. They saw grocery stores empty and bread lines and everything, and nothing was working. Same as Venezuela under socialism. And they thought, well, let's do that here in the U.S. And they didn't realize that state-run monopolies fail all the time for the same reasons everywhere, and it doesn't matter if you're casting a ballot or not. You get the same disastrous results because there are no incentives anywhere in the system to make things work.
No, there's not. No, sadly. Well, sadly, we're at the end of the show, but we're going to watch a small video of you running, if you want to talk a little bit about it.
This is the biggest problem we have in our system in our state is that most of the money comes from out of state. Most of the campaign funding comes from out of state.
Yes.
It's worse for the Democrats, but we have some Republican candidates too who take money from out of state, and these politicians are working for out of state groups. By the time I did this video, it was about halfway through the campaign, and the other 2 gubernatorial candidates had taken about $6.5 million in out-of-state contributions. Wow. And it's millions and millions more. Most of the New Hampshire Democrat Party's money comes from out-of-state.
Wow, that's a lot. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on, Max, and we definitely have to have you back.
It's good to be here. Thanks.
Yeah. All right, and we're going to be watching the video, so stay tuned to that. And until next time, I'll see you later. Bye now.
I'm Max Abramson, Libertarian candidate for governor. As a state representative, I've worked hard to get money, power, and decision-making back down to the local level and back to the people. Yet as legislators, we've received countless contacts from constituents who are being pushed around by state agencies, by the Attorney General's office, or even by the family courts. Worse, the 2 executive counselors I'm running against have already benefited from over $6.5 million of out-of-state campaign contributions from powerful special interest groups. Both have been confirming all of the governor's pro-Common Core appointees and to give $424 million of your tax money to the hospital lobby that finances their campaigns. neither has done anything to investigate wrongful convictions or abuse by state agencies. Both are in the back pockets of the prison industry, trial lawyers, union officials, and out-of-state casinos that bankroll their campaigns. The problem with our state government is the corruption. I don't work for powerful special interest groups. I just listen to both sides and do what I think is the right thing to do. As governor, I'll fire all of Hassan's taxpayer-funded lobbyists, clean up the Attorney General's office, investigate voter fraud, and get government off your back. I'm Max Abramson, and I approve of this message of smaller government.